Okay, welcome. Here we are. So this is the Genius at Work series. This is our second event, and it is about tapping your inner genius as a way to help with anti-racism efforts. As we know, this is a time of great uprising and shift. And those of you who are here live and all the names I knew of people who RSVP'd to be here live or watch the replay, what I noticed was it was people I wasn't surprised. Those of you who are here, I know as people who've got big hearts and who are change makers and want to support the advancement of our world. And, you know, tonight is about specifically the anti-racism efforts that are, there's a huge groundswell, there's a great opportunity to actually create change. And so tonight is an opportunity to really go within and be a part of exploring how you can really help. So I actually prepared some slides to help keep us on track for the beginning part of this evening. So let me open those for you. Let's see. Screen. Hold on one moment. Oh, I seem to have lost my slides. I just need a moment here. Here they are. Okay. There they are. Okay. Back to here. Share. Perfect. Okay. So this is what we are going to run through. Here's our overview. So we're going to start with talking about purpose as a foundational piece of information for our conversation. Then I'm going to share some education about your genius so that you can connect with it. Those of you who have worked with me as a client, you have done a lot of work around tapping your genius. Some of you here might also feel like, I'm not exactly sure what genius is or what mine is. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to do an activity that I'm going to guide you through that's going to help you tap into what your genius is and specifically how you can use it towards anti-racism efforts. Then I'm going to open it up for questions, sharing. This is an opportunity that I can support you. My genius is helping people see their genius. I have been someone who's had activism as a part of my work and personal life. And so I'm very happy to be with you in this inquiry and support from the aspect of what is your genius to us and that sort of internal inquiry, but also practical advice about how you can take some steps. After the Q&A and live coaching, I'll share a couple more pieces to tie it all up into a bow. So we'll have ways you can have additional support with me if desired, techniques to cultivate courage, to utilize what you've learned tonight and take it out into the world. And then how do you tap into those exact, precise next steps for you towards anti-racism? Okay, so are you all ready? Okay. I want to point out that you can ask questions as we go. I don't know if I'll see them when I'm sharing the screen, but feel free to pop questions in the Q&A as we're going. And if I don't get them live while we're talking, we can refer back to them when we get to the Q&A section. So if something comes up for you, feel free to type those questions in so that I can be sure to answer them, even if it's not right away. All right, so purpose. We're starting with purpose as a foundation this evening because there is civil unrest in the world right now. And what that provokes, it doesn't matter what side of the debate you're on, it can easily provoke fear within. It can easily provoke what would be a response of our ego self as opposed to our more enlightened self. This morning, I heard Eckhart Tolle, who's a spiritual teacher, that speaks a lot about living from ego versus more of an enlightened state. And one of the things that he talked about is how right now many people's egos are being triggered, and so they're being more reactive and fear-based, and that's really common. And we can choose instead to be more enlightened and come more from our higher selves. But that actually takes effort. This life on this human planet that we live on, fear is everywhere. It's certainly in the media. It's coming a lot from our politicians right now, particularly around the coronavirus, a lot of fear energy around that to keep us safe. And then also there's a lot of people that are in this anti-racism debate or civil unrest debate that are bringing in, fear to those conversations. So whether it's your own fear or fear coming from others that you're engaged with, we want to recognize the presence of fear, because the presence of fear, if it's coming out of us, is going to have us approach this subject or any other from that more ego reactive state. And in fact, just even the word react is something to consider. We're reacting, as opposed to when we're in our more enlightened state, our higher self, from our heart, we're responding. And so that's what we want to be starting with, is we're in this conversation here about bringing out our genius for anti-racism. We want to come from a space of responding. And one of the wise things that I've seen in a lot of my community, when I say that, I mean like social media, the people I'm connected with, people I follow and who are following me and commenting, a lot of what I'm seeing is people pausing, like not immediately jumping into action, but you can tell they're doing things like educating themselves or amplifying Black voices. If they're a white person, they're maybe amplifying Black voices on their social media, sharing more posts about anti-racism efforts that other people are sharing. And so what I see happening with a lot of people, and I believe it's very wise, is taking some time to take this all in so that it's not a reactive jump, it's responding. And that's something to consider, because when we look at what can happen when we react, if you look at this slide, for example, you see, for like, one of the things that's here is you can freeze and feel like, I don't know what to do. And then feel like, you're stuck there. That's something that can happen when you're in fear. Another really interesting thing that can happen in fear is that you start comparing yourself to others. And this is really relevant and significant when it comes to the conversation of what's your genius. And I've been super careful around this, and I'll probably talk about it a little more tonight, but it's so easy to see what other people are doing and admire it and think you should, I'm using air quotes right now, you should do that same kind of thing. And when I use the word should ever, know that red flags should go up. That is a word of fear. Should is always a word of fear. Doesn't mean that what you're saying after it is not, is a bad thing. It's just that the energy behind your statement in that moment is fear-based. And so that's a really great word to notice in your vocabulary around this conversation or any other. So if you see somebody else doing something great and then think you should do it, it's a comparison. And comparison, the problem about comparison when it comes to genius is what other people do well is what they do well. Doesn't mean you do it well. Doesn't mean it's your genius. And we're going to talk more about that and why that's really significant. Comparison can be kind of a killer around your own genius, because it makes you think you should be doing something other than what's your natural and most beautiful gift to give. So let's talk a little bit about when you're in that state of love. I say here on this slide, your purpose is to love. So many of us are looking in the world. What is my purpose? What is my purpose? And big picture, our purpose, all of us, is love. And there's a lot of different ways that can be expressed. But the purpose, the foundation of everything, anything you want to do around anti-racism efforts, assisting in the civil unrest that exists right now, it's all going to be to give love, whether it's loving one person that needs support, sharing your talents to shine love and light on a particular effort that is moving forward, or whether it's loving yourself because you need to keep renewing your energy to keep going forward. So love is the purpose of all of it, bringing us back together to a state of love. And that's our starting point for tonight. Okay. If anybody has any questions or comments on that, go ahead and type it into the chat. And we're going to next start actually talking about genius. What is genius? That's why we're here tonight. And this is one of the, as I was putting these slides together, I typed in this second line here, which says the big surprise about your genius, is that it's easy. That's what makes your genius your genius. And what really captures this is this quote by Albert Einstein, which I use all the time. It's just the epitome of explaining what genius is and helps us understand why we don't see it. And so what Albert Einstein said is the following: everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. That's that comparison idea, right? So a fish climbing a tree, if that's what the fish thinks it's supposed to do, it's going to fail. It's not going to do a very good job, right? And what's that fish going to think? Well, I'm stupid. I'm not very good. I'm not good enough. That's what happens to us if we try to do something that isn't in our genius. We suffer, we struggle, it feels hard. Just be with that for a minute. The surprising thing for people about genius is it's easy. Your genius is easy for you. For a monkey to climb a tree, it's easy. Natural instincts, innate talent, its body was built for it. Your genius, you were built for it. The innate talent is there, the right body is there, the passion is there, it's all there. And when we're talking about your genius, we're not talking about something, oh, you went to school for and you learned how to do it. That's not genius. What you go to school for may be helpful to catalyze your genius, but sometimes what you go to school for makes this whole thing really confusing, because school is often about teaching you what you don't know. And at the moment, I'm talking about the education system as opposed to specialized learning that you might seek to enhance your genius. But school generally is about teaching you what you don't know. Like, I was an accounting major in college. I did not know accounting. It was not a natural thing for me. I could use rational deduction and thinking to understand it. And I was highly trained in it. I did well in it. But that wasn't my natural innate talent, right? I could do that for a career, but I realized at the end of school, I was like, this will be hard. It's not really my personality. It's not really my thing. So that's really what there is to understand about your genius. It's innate, it's natural, and there's going to be some questions that we're going to go through that are going to help you tap a little bit more into what that is for you. So, given what we've just said here on the next slide, let's talk about what the genius mindset shift is. Before you really get into the mindset of your own genius, oftentimes you might be thinking who you think you, again, air quotes, should be. And, like I said, I caught myself doing this around anti-racism, like watching other people and what they did really well and how well they did it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that too. That looks really good, right? And so it's like the mindset becomes, well, I need to learn how to do what they just did. Let me figure out how to do that. When you're in your genius zone, now we're talking about the mindset shift. Your mindset, everything you need is already inside. You don't have to figure anything out. You can just go. For myself, part of my genius zone is teaching, coaching. And also, I received training as a lawyer that helped me in that area of like, as a lawyer, you're trained to take big ideas that are massive and confusing and all over the place, and then kind of distill it down, simplify it, and share it with others. That's one of the things that you're really trained with as a lawyer. Also, part of my background is I was a criminal defense lawyer. That was the work I did. So recently, one of the things I did do to bring forth my genius in anti-racism efforts was I created a video talking about the Rayshard Brooks shooting and how that made a strong case for the defund the police movement, which I had some awareness around before recent issues because I had been active in restorative justice work. Now, for me, creating that video, so teaching, using the ability to take all this big information that people don't understand, distilling it down, speaking about it, that all came easily from within me based on my natural talent, my passion, and my experience. All of those things made that an easy way for me to take a step in anti-activism. And I made that video because I knew a lot of the people who followed me on social media are wanting to help with the anti-racist movement, but they wouldn't have known the types of information that I had because I was a criminal defense lawyer and I've done restorative justice work. So I felt like I gathered this knowledge and information. Let me share this. That was, an effort for anti-racism. The couple thousand people that may follow me on social media, if they care to hear about defund the police is scaring a lot of people. And I get that. Like, that sounds scary to a lot of people. We hear lawmakers and politicians talk about law and order all the time. And I've always been on a different side of that because of my background in law, knowing that police can be very oppressive in our society. And if you're a white person that has never had that experience of police oppression, that could be shocking and surprising. So that's just an example of, here's an easy way for me to make a step forward in anti-racist efforts based on my knowledge, my passion, and my skill set, using my genius. And that's, again, it's just an example of, if you get in that mindset shift, whatever your genius is will be easy for you. If what I just described sounds horribly terrible and you would never want to get on camera and all that, not your genius zone. You have something else. That's the thing. That's the thing we want to point out here. And so when we look at, again, the two contrasts, who you think you should be versus who you really are, in that pre-genius focused mindset, that thing to do feels hard and maybe you're in your head about it and you feel afraid. But if it's something that's in your genius zone, you feel like, oh, that's easy, and that'll actually be fun, and you're just truly sharing your heart with others. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. And so let's just take a breath and actually give you permission to support these efforts in ways that will feel joyful and easy for you. Because that's when you're going to give your best stuff to the world. And you see that in the last line of each side in the slides here, When you're in this mindset of like who you think you should be and how you think you should help people, and it's hard and you're heady, you actually can push people away. The result can be people can, your message won't resonate with them, or they'll notice like it might feel inauthentic in terms of how they receive it. But on the other side, when you're in your genius zone and you're just truly sharing from your heart and you're lit up and you're passionate, then people are really going to be more attracted to what you're doing and you're more lit up by it. And so more people are going to, come towards you and want to be a part of it. So that's the beauty of being yourself. Okay, I'm going to take a nice sip of tea here. Everybody else feel free to do the same. Just doing a time check. Okay. So this is our activity that I'm going to guide us through. If you don't have it right now, please grab a pen and paper. And you're going to do some writing here, which I'm going to guide you through. And I'll just give you some context for this activity. So as I mentioned, what is your genius is it's your natural talent. It also comes from your experience, and it's an expression of your passion. That's what your genius is. And I have coached people probably my whole life about figuring out what their genius is, but as my work for the last 8 years. And so I've really seen some patterns about what are the questions that help somebody see their genius. What are the signals of what they say if something's in their genius zone? Just like I said, if you use the word should, you're in fear. Like there's just these signals that I know, or these questions to ask. And so the questions I have here are very intentional to help you connect with your genius that would be supportive here to anti-racism efforts. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to guide us just in some a centering practice to just breathe, connect with our hearts. And then after doing that for just a couple minutes, I'm going to begin to run through these questions with you. I'm going to guide you through them. You can see them on the screen, but I'm going to speak them out loud because I'm not going to just say the question. I'm going to say a little more about each just to give it full context, okay? All right. So let's just take a moment and close our eyes if that feels comfortable. Just take a nice deep cleansing breath. So inhale through the mouth and exhale through the mouth. Do a couple more of those and let your shoulders really shrug down on the exhale. I notice mine can be up in my ears sometimes when I'm feeling tight. Place one of your hands at your heart center. It's just a way to connect with your heart. Your heart is the center where your genius flows through, your courage, your compassion, your love. So just taking a moment to breathe and connect. If you'd like, you can place your other hand on your belly. Sometimes that helps you feel a little more grounded. So one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Just breathing. And I'm going to leave us here in silence for a minute. Just be real intentional about connecting with your heart, letting go of your thoughts and feeling your heart. Giving thanks to your heart for the guidance it's going to provide as you answer these questions, knowing that your heart has great wisdom. May it speak to you with ease and courage. When you're ready, go ahead and gently open your eyes. Put your pen in your hand. And we're going to start with the first question. Around the area of anti-racism, who are role models you admire? Now, this may sound confusing because I said don't compare yourself. So let me tell you, the key word here is admire. You look at them and what they do, you're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. I want to do that. Like, it's like a space of admiration, not jealousy or a should. It's true admiration. So just go ahead and write down a name, a couple names, but notice, what do you admire about them? Be specific. For me, there's a media personality and activist. His name is Van Jones. And I'm loving how he's talking about the key issues right now. Right? And he's informing and educating people. That would be a role model for me. So go ahead and just jot down 1 or 2 role models for you. Okay, the next question is, what do you geek out over? And let's not limit this by anti-racism efforts. Geeking out in just general terms is about, like, where do you lose time? What do you love doing that you can do it for hours, you get lost in it? For me, coaching is an example. Like, I can't help it. My client sessions are typically an hour, but I could probably talk to most of my clients for 3 hours. Like, I could just go on, and I love it so much. What do you geek out over, whether it's in your workday, your personal life? Go ahead and just take a couple minutes and write down what those 1, 2, or 3 things might be for you. You geek out over. Okay, the next question is, what skills would you love to share? So now let's go back to, like, in the context of anti-racism efforts, what are the skills you have that you'd love to bring to the table? So as I mentioned in my example, I love speaking and teaching. I love sharing from my experience in law and restorative justice work about where oppression exists that other people may not understand. I also love coaching, as I mentioned. That's what I'm doing here tonight with all of you. So go ahead and like, what for you, when you think of anti-racism, what are skills? Don't try to, you don't even have to figure out how you use them, but just like, oh, I love coaching, I love teaching, I love whatever those are. Just go ahead and jot those down. Okay, next question. What experience do you have that lights you up? And here's what I want to share about that. So, as you've been paying attention to the civil unrest, anti racism issues, what particularly from your own experience do you start to feel passion around? So, for me, it was very clear like, there's so many different ways someone could help with anti racism, but I'm like, oh, gosh, police oppression, like that's something I've known about since I got into the law. And where, that's an area that I just have experience. I do get really passionate to talk about that and educate about that and bring that to light for people because it's an area I've always believed there needed to be change. So, what experience lights you up? Where are you noticing your passion being aroused? There's so many different elements of anti-racism efforts. What's from your experience lighting you up? So go ahead and take a minute to write that down. And then your answer to that question is probably going to dovetail right into this final question here. What has prepared you for this? So, you're lit up, you're passionate about something, your skills are kind of coming forth. What prepared you for, what you're seeing is exciting to you? So for me, I would say the last 3 years of restorative justice work has prepared me in a way to be able to be an activist at this time. Okay, and now we have our like pinnacle question, which is at the bottom of the slide here. So something I've observed in client coaching sessions is that when people say to me, well, I have this crazy idea, or okay, well, I have an idea, but it's kind of weird. When that is what my client says, I know that whatever comes out of their mouth is going to be their genius and brilliant and something that they're kind of hiding under the surface, but it's amazing. And so I want you to tap your crazy or weird ideas right now from everything you wrote down. Like that was the data dump, what you just wrote down. And if you look at that, what's the crazy and weird ideas, right up to 5 of them? of what you could do to support anti-racism efforts. Don't judge them. Don't limit them. Just write them down, whatever they are. And remember, your genius is fun and easy. So just write it down. It would excite you and light you up and feel a little crazy. Go ahead and do that. Okay, just a couple more seconds to wrap that up. Hopefully there's a little giggle inside of you for something really exciting you uncovered. I know I feel that way. And then we're going to move into the Q&A and live coaching opportunity for all of you. And here's what I want to invite. Now, first of all, share if you're comfortable, not a requirement that you share. But this is an opportunity to voice what you pulled out of yourself here. And either just share it as your personal insight that you might receive, you know, some comments or affirmation about it, and that's it. Or, you know, notice what you have come up with and ask questions. You know, it could be as basic as like, this idea really sounds crazy. What do I do? Right? So whatever's there, feel free to ask for a question, ask a question, or ask for support. So you might say, wow, I want to do this thing. I just realized this, but I need a resource that I don't think I have access to. You know, Gina, can you give me some insight into that? So really, whatever's there. So let's just take a moment and breathe again, and close your eyes if you want, and just tune in to see if you have a question or if something's burning inside of you to talk about and receive some feedback or affirmation on. All right, so we received a comment from Aurora, and so I'll read that into the space. And Aurora, if you want to say anything more about it, we welcome you to do that. Here's what she said. I recently launched a new initiative called Office Hours to do a free hour of bring any question you have about sustainability. The first one was 2 weeks ago. I made the topic about the intersection of sustainability and racial justice. That's amazing. That's really,
Thank you. It was a kind of a big leap to just get this off the ground anyway. I didn't do a great job of promoting it, so it wasn't well attended, but my interns were on the call, so that doubled the attendance. But I decided to make the first topic, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm just going to leap into this topic because it's the most relevant way that I can be present in this space in a relevant and contextual way. In other words, I'm not suddenly trying to be a voice I haven't been in the past. So I'm continuing to be the voice I always am, but just also bringing up another voice I sometimes am that doesn't get as much stage time and air time. And I used the website Idea Boards, IDEABOARDZ. It's a free tool. And I created this idea boards and created, actually, I mean, I don't know if you want to see it real quick, but it's basically just this quick little way that you can create all these little, I'm going to share my screen if you want me to. If it's up to you, Gina, if you want to give me permission to share it, I can just show you real quick where you can allow people to create sticky notes and then upvote ideas. And so I made it possible to for anybody to log on to this and add into it. And so it's I can just put the link in the after the call.
I'm not sure I have the tech ability to help show you how to share the screen, but yes, put the link on there. That would be great.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so anybody can click on that, and it can mean that the conversation can go on past just that first evening. So I'm kind of excited that now it's out there, right? So rather than just being a one-time thing, it can be a conversation that we can continually post in social media and see if people want to join in and add to this intersection of sustainability and social justice. Because a lot of people think sustainability means just green. And so a lot of my work is trying to convince people, no, it's not just green, it's all things social and environmental. And this was a great way to be able to demonstrate that.
Well, thank you for doing that, Aurora. And, I picked up on you sharing that it wasn't well attended. I didn't promote it real well. Here's what I would say about something like that. You were like getting it started. And sometimes we've got to play and test. I have the same experience with this event. I was actually out sick last week. And so I fell flat on my promotions for this event. And, it's just sort of how I see it is like, well, it's a great opportunity to play in the space and there'll be more opportunities. So, you did it and feel great about that.
Yeah, exactly. I had to sort of change my mindset and be okay with a small start. It got us the opportunity to work out some technical kinks and be better prepared for the next time.
Yes. Well, thank you for stepping forth and doing that. And like you said, you weren't entering an area that was brand new to you. You used your genius to support this conversation. So please keep us all posted about how you're continuing to do that.
Thank you.
Did you have a question or anything or sharing beyond that? That was really beautiful to hear that example.
No, I think I just need to keep doing more of that. I have some other ideas, but that, I feel like if I just continue on this one and really develop it, that will be a good use of my energy and focus.
Great. And we got a comment from Tim. Thanks for sharing, Aurora. Wonderful. Anybody else want to raise their hand with a question or share what came out of the activity for you? We'd just even love to hear and witness you.
Well, I've explained to other people that my voice will get better once I start talking because of my condition. Anyways, we're talking about role models, okay? I don't know if any of you had seen The Last Dance, like all 10 episodes of Michael Jordan's thing on ESPN. If not, it was great. No, it was great. It did show him as like winner. He needs to win. There's nothing on his mind except winning. So that kind of turned me off because I then was watching something about LeBron James. What's his name?
LeBron James?
Yes. Has anybody ever taken the time to see what he's all about besides being a great basketball player? I didn't either, but they had a documentary on ESPN, so I just started watching it. And the reason I was so impressed with how do you pronounce his first? LeBron James, is that he was all about him and his four guys that have known each other since they grew up, probably since kindergarten. Didn't matter. But he trusts them so much in his process and has them at his side always, since he was a nothing to like the superstar mega, gazillion kind of person, whereas Michael Jordan was all about Michael Jordan. So so I like that he doesn't forget where he comes from. He shares, he listens to his guys, his support system, because none of us can do it by ourselves, regardless if it's, we all want to change the world and make a mark, but it takes listening more than it does speaking.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And someone like myself, who, we've talked about that, I'm 70 years old, so they consider me, I'm called a new elder as opposed to a senior, which I prefer because it just seems like I'm much smarter, So my point is, I think that's what I geeked out about over the years. Well, of course, I have 4 grandchildren. So having been quarantined for 80 days because of my age, because of my fear that everybody has cooties, that's just being with them again in their physical presence and touching and feeling and smelling. I geek out about that. I also geek out being the connector. When I have done this in the past, and I hope to God that's part of my genius in terms of moving forward, is to connect people to create win-win situations. Like we've discussed, a couple of my friends who got squeezed out of their jobs right before a pandemic. I mean, serious jobs, serious income. It's like, okay, now what? Okay.
Yeah.
So with what's going on, like being in the special events world for as long as I have been, one thing that sticks out so much in terms of this anti-racism, which I consider to be just like being a Jew, anti-Semitism, it's the same deal. Okay, anyway, you cut it. It's like we just have to listen. The thing that thrills me is the hue of colors with the protesters, because I'm a hippie by heart, so I get it with the protesting. I wish I had the time and the energy to be out there, okay? That's all good. But the good news is with this current thing, with the anti-racism and the social injustice and stuff, like there's all different kinds of people out there today. As opposed to the riots of '68, which I was very privy to. That's hopeful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Only an elder could share that with us today because you lived in that time. And so really appreciate that. And I hear for you also being a connector, bringing people together, whether it's physically, if that can be done physically, or to create something together. Sounds like ways you could really use your genius at this time, and that would be lovely.
It's great because when I take my walks along the lake during this time, I see policemen, of course, because the lakefront isn't open yet. Haha. So like I see people playing games with the policemen. So I stopped a cop. I just went up to him. I said, so give me your opinion. What do you think? It was Father's Day, so I wished him a happy Father's Day. So that started the conversation. And so he said, listen, this is so different for me since when I first started being a policeman. So I guess what I'm trying to say, Gina, is there's three sides to every story, and we have to understand. Like this white elder has no effing clue how truly bad it is. Yes, I have an idea, but there's no way.
Right.
I just feel.
Yeah. Thank you for that wisdom. Anybody else? We can take one more question. If anybody else has a question. Otherwise, I have a couple next steps I'll share with you. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this slide was just letting you know how you can get some additional support from me beyond the Q&A we just had or opportunity you witnessed. I do have a free guide on my website. It's called Unleash Your Genius. And so it's a really helpful guide for the 3 phases of connecting to your genius, which is first to examine. So what is the genius within? We did some of that tonight. The second step, the second phase in unleashing your genius is to empower. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But empower is about, now that you know what you can do, how do you actually cultivate the faith to go out into the world and do those things, because it's going to take courage and stepping out of your comfort zone. And then the third phase in that guide is embody. And that's how you actually start to get out there and share the gifts. So Aurora explained an opportunity that she did just that. She went out and was embodying her genius and sharing her gifts. And so that takes another set of tools and wisdom and learnings. And so you learn about those in the guidebook. Another way that you can feel additional support is on the Insight Timer app. Taylor, would you mind putting a link in the notes to Insight Timer people can access? This isn't a meditation app online. Thanks, Taylor. It's a meditation app, and I'm a teacher on the app. So you can actually access meditations by me. And there's one of them listed on there that is a prayer. So if you want to receive prayer for yourself that's guided for you around how to connect to your genius for anti-racism efforts. I actually have a prayer posted specifically on this topic that we're on tonight. So go ahead and listen to that. They also just added something really cool on Insight Timer. It's meditations guided by people of color. They hadn't segmented that out. And so that can be a new resource to check out on the app as well. And then in addition, if you're wanting to go deeper to sense into your genius around anti-racism efforts or in any other aspect of your life, feel free to book a clarity session with me. I'm offering one-time sessions, which I don't usually do, but I started offering them during all the unrest in the world that's been happening from coronavirus to the civil unrest. A lot of people are asking some big questions right now. So you can book a clarity session with me and get clarity around your direction. If you think you would want more than just one coaching sessions, you can also book a consultation with me for coaching. Okay, so 2 more pieces of information as we wrap up what you got out of the inquiry you went within yourself. The first piece is, okay, I've tapped into my crazy ideas. Well, now what? They feel kind of scary, or I'm not sure how to move forward. The first thing you really want to do is cultivate courage around those ideas to start to bring them forward. And this goes back to the beginning when we were talking about your purpose is to love. And so to help create change in the world, loving is going to require inner strength and courage. Courage is a word that comes from the word heart. When you go back to, I think it's the Greek or the Latin translation, cor means heart. And so it's about going into your heart and finding that strength and courage to actually now go forward and do this thing that you feel called to do. And so this is in my Unleash Your Genius guidebook. If you want to have more access to it, I talk about lots of things you can do to shift from fear to faith. But these are some examples, and I wanted to give us all a minute to review them together so that you can leave this conversation feeling empowered with, okay, I've got a crazy idea. Now what? If you're feeling fear around it and you want to shift back into your heart, into a sense of faith that, yes, this is for me to do, or not even, you don't have to have a decision that you're going to do it. It might just be a next step to explore, right? It doesn't have to be like I created this event or Aurora created her office hours. It could be, I'm curious about maybe, volunteering to help my local alderman on their efforts. Let me just put in a call to my alderman's office, like a step like that, just to be inquiring, right? But that still may require courage and strength from within. And so if you're feeling frozen or feeling doubtful, these are some things you can do to cultivate courage. One of the very basics is breathe. And, we did that a couple of times tonight together as I stopped us to just breathe. There's so much, when we're in fear, we're not breathing. And so when you just stop and take a breath, everything lightens, the shoulders, come down, and you start to get present in the moment. And when you're present in the moment, the fear isn't there, because the fear is either about something from the past you're worried about or something in the future you're anxious about. So just breathe. That's a great starting point. Another way to release fear, shift out of it, and move towards courage is movement. Like getting up and like shaking it out, dancing. It's something I do a lot to just get rid of negative energy, that fear energy. Since the quarantine started, I've been doing yoga regularly. That is fantastic. Just moving and pressing on and shifting and stretching parts of my body. It just starts to move the breath and get out the locked parts in my body, and that makes a big difference. Sometimes also just talking to somebody, really helpful. I am an extroverted personality, and so if I can find someone to talk to about my concerns, my fears, I usually work it out pretty quickly and easily. Not even that they have to tell me their advice, but often I say things out loud, and I'm just looking for people to witness me, as we witnessed here today with Audrey and Aurora. Neither of them was asking for advice. They just spoke about what they were experiencing and what was coming up for them. And that's just a great way to continue to be affirmed through yourself and through the listening of others to bring forth courage. So those are just a few examples that are listed here on the slide. Or again, go to the Unleash Your Genius guidebook and you'll see I have a list of 22 ways to shift from fear to faith. And so those techniques are really helpful. And then this is our final slide for tonight to wrap up this conversation. And that is just asking, what are the next steps, right? What are the next steps? And so I would give you all a moment here to just breathe again, be in the moment, and just notice if anything is coming up for you right now. If you think of one of those crazy ideas that feels the most fun, is there a next step you can take? Again, it doesn't have to be the like, I'm putting on an event, but a simple next step. And it could be, look, you could be inspired around something big, so I don't want to discourage that. But wherever you are is fine. Small step, big step. Just take a minute and breathe and sense into what might that be for you. And if you feel inspired, go ahead and type your next step in the comments, or type in the comments, how you're feeling as we're wrapping up tonight. And I have this quote that I want to leave you all with, which comes from Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. And he said the following: have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. And so I leave you with that piece of advice this evening, to know that what is yours to do around anti-racism efforts, it's going to come through in your heart and your intuition. You're going to feel the pulse, the desire to take that action, to move forward in that way. And so I invite you to trust it, because that's your genius talking to you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Feel free again to leave a comment as we're wrapping up. If you have a closing comment you want to make, I'll read the comments that are coming in. Jane says, thank you, Gina. I'm feeling very hopeful and committed. Aurora says, this was great. Thanks for doing this. And Tim declares, steps. I'm starting to record some of my stories this weekend for a podcast. I've written some already. Tim is someone I know, and when I saw he registered, I'm like, Tim's genius is sharing stories. So yes. If I can support you in any way, let me know. Any of you who are here or who are gonna watch the recording, please let me know if there are ways I can support you in these efforts. Drop me a note at Gina. So my email is gina@ginamorata.com. I would love to witness you, support you, cheer you on in these efforts. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.